Well, hello everybody out there in model land. Horrible Modeler here. And tonight, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some airbrushing. Now, to say that I'm a good airbrusher would be a very, very, very vivid stretch of the imagination. I would like to think I am, just because of all the bottles of paint I've ran through and all the beautiful model creations that I have that have overspray and splatter and all that other stuff that you guys hate and I hate too. But my skills have gotten better, and mostly it's just because it's taken time, and it's because I have collected a ton of advice from a lot of people like you, and you know, asking around on the forums and stuff like that. The one thing that I see that a lot of YouTube videos is that there's such a wide array of what people have, and I've bought and tried cheaper airbrushes, even though the ones I use aren't that expensive. I've seen people with high-end compressors and everything, and yeah, they get great results, but I mean, that's just not reasonable for most of us, especially at the beginning level and stuff. So I guess I'd like to kind of go through a couple things on how I airbrush, and I'll show you that on the D7. So I've got it in the spray bay, and I'm going to lay down some enamel paint on that. It's the first time actually shooting enamel. I take that back. I shot some of it last night, and it's really just like acrylic. The only difference is it takes longer to dry, so the forced heat method doesn't work as well. You can't touch it, so you really need to let it sit for a day. And with the time running down on the Sci-Fi Model Action group build, I figured I'd better start laying down some paint. So I just wanted to briefly say thanks to Jason Marshall, Jason's Workbench, for giving me just such great encouragement and everything. Jason's a really, really great modeler. You guys really need to check out his channel. I'm not very good at YouTube stuff yet either, so I don't know how to link it or anything, but if you go to the Sci-Fi Model Action forum, you can find all that stuff. So I'm going to add this clip here to the one of the airbrushing. If you guys have any questions, definitely put them in the comments. Whether what I'm using or what I've seen in the past that's worked or hasn't worked. Obviously we can't go through a model without talking about airbrushing. So as my builds just keep on coming along, there'll be more airbrushing tips and stuff like that as well as I get better. And there should be some stuff that you'll pick up on tonight that I hope helps you out. So check it out. And
Well, here we are, guys. I've got some of the parts of the D7 in the spray booth, and as you can tell by the color, I have sprayed down some of the Model Master Fulcrum Gray Green, which is a color that it's called out for. I'm not going to go exactly like the instructions say, because I want to make it mine, make it my own art, and make it a little different. But I kind of like the way that this color kind of looks with the gray in different lighting and stuff like that. But I guess the first thing is, went over some of those primer spots again. I just had a couple little cracks that just kept showing up, just very little. And instead of going through the putty and stuff like that again, I've been through all that and wasted time and sandpaper and everything else. I just decided that I was just going to, over a couple hours, just build up small light layers of that high build primer, come back and go at it with like a 2000 and a 3000 grit sandpaper, just because the first time I did it, I went against my own advice I've given in one of my videos, because I'm just not that good at remembering, and just not that good of a modeler. So I went like with, I don't know, some 600 or something, and just ripped it all down. Just too much, all the work that I put in. So I got smart this time and went at it that way. So what I want to do is just touch briefly on how I airbrush. I've learned a lot from watching a bunch of different people, and I'm starting to get some pretty decent results. I still got a lot of stuff to get better at, like masking and everything. This is going to be awful when I have to flip it over and mask it and worry about overspray and touching stuff up. It's just kind of where my modeling just falls apart, but I'm trying to get better at. The other thing is I got to remember that this is enamel stuff and I can't touch it because it takes a little bit longer to dry. So anyway, got the airbrush here. Hopefully everybody can see that. Still got some of my color left in there. Now, with a regular compressor, what you're spraying at with these paints and stuff, you have to use some kind of thinner. Unless you're using Vallejo Model Air paint, you have to thin this stuff somehow. The most foolproof way I've found is, there's two thinners that I use. Either this for enamels, I just use some kind of enamel thinner. For anything else, no matter what brand of acrylic it is, I use Tamiya X20A, just because it just can't be beat. It works with everything, and that's just the way it is. So basically, I take my little eyedropper, stick it in there. See if I get this on camera. There's no really precise amount. I just kind of fill it up to where it starts coming up into the color cup a little bit, if I'm going to use a decent amount of paint. And the thing that's cool about it is when you pour the paint in there, you can see it just kind of come up to the, pour the paint into about how much that you want. I mean, it's close to a 50-50 mix, but it could vary anywhere. But the most important thing is put the thinner in first. Then put the paint on top of it and watch them all kind of blend together. Then take your brush and don't slap it on your model, but just stir this stuff up like really good. Just jam that paintbrush down in there, give it all a big stir, wipe it on the model, and you can see how runny it is. It's not super runny, but it's decently runny enough. Everybody says to use the milk rule and thin it to milk, and that's just bad advice. That's horrible advice. Not to sound cliche, but it is. It's horrible. So the next thing I do is want to blow some of this through, check my paint flow, check my consistency. It looks like everything's coming out where I want it to. So then I'm going to start spraying. I'm not going to spray on the model. I'm going to turn on the spray booth here. It might get a little loud and the audio might get crazy, but I'll just show you, what I do here. But those are the most important steps. Okay, check the flow again. I never start on the model. I always start off. Push the trigger down for the air. This is a dual action. This is my Patriot 105. This is like my go-to brush. It's just a workhorse. It's die hard. Ken Badger's great. I had a problem with the first one I got. The guy shipped me a new one. You get the needle kit with it. You just can't beat that. So I've already put a couple layers down on this thing. So I'm just kind of going over it again and building it up. It's not rocket science, but I guess the whole thing that I had a problem with when I first started using the airbrush was just getting the consistency of the paint right, so I wasn't running. If it starts running on you right away, just back off, let it dry, and remember that, you put your paint was too thin. And if you always put more paint on than you need, that's fine, because after my first coat, I always come back with a wet sand at a high grit, just to basically smooth everything out, check for any spots that I missed, and all kinds of crazy stuff. So you can see I'm really not being too careful at all. I know I'm confident in my spray, and that's pretty much all that matters right now. So I got a couple other parts up here that I'm going to do this color. Get those in the camera a little bit. Start spraying these things down. see, this is what's nice with the spray booth inside is, you know, you don't have to worry about making a mess and being careful. When, you know, having to worry about how careful you're being with these really stinks. So, all right, one more. I'm out of paint here, so I'll let that settled up a little bit. Maybe use a little bit of heat on it with the heat gun, and we'll be right back.